The International Court of Justice yesterday ordered Israel to take measures to avoid genocide during its military campaign in Gaza in a historic ruling, but it did not impose the ceasefire that South Africa had requested in its application. Although the court accepted South Africa's contention that a credible case of genocide could be heard, it was made abundantly evident in the order that it did not reach a conclusion about the existence of a genocide in progress. Joining me now to unpack this decision is public policy analyst Dr. Mathebula. Dr. Mathebula, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, the court granted some provisional measures that South Africa applied for, except for Israel to cease fire immediately in Gaza. What's your assessment of that outcome?
Thank you, Mpo, and thank you to the listeners of your channel. Look, I think our expectations was that the word ceasefire was supposed to be in the judgment. And what the judges did, they did not mention the word in some of the provisional some of the provisions that we wanted to push Israel to be able to cease fire. But what has been achieved by South Africa is few things. One, the Israel-Palestinian case is now a matter of court decision. The issue of whether there's genocide in Gaza or what is now a matter that has gone into the International Court of Justice. So those two are not questionable. But also, what South Africa has done to the world, and this is something that I wish the Western world could applaud South Africa for. South Africa has resuscitated the importance of the institutions of the United Nations, like the International Court of Justice. South Africa took a matter that was difficult to resolve in the Security Council and the National Assembly and put it into the hands of an adjudication process that everybody will trust and will believe in. And this is reminiscent. And some of the South Africans that are questioning the government for doing that, it is funny because some of the civil society movement that are making noise are actually doing the same in South Africa. When Parliament is not coming to the party the way they want, they take our policies in the country to the Constitutional Court, and generally they get decisions that are fair, democratic, and decisions that are stripped of political nuances. And that's what South Africa has done. It has taken how its constitutional order works and took how the rule of law works and took the matter into Gaza and Palestine, and it has given hope to the Palestinians and the Gazans. What we have known, I think those kids and those young women and whatever, they could have gone into being suicide bombers and all those things. But this hope that came out of the International Court of Justice has redefined their hope of the future, because now they know that the world at its highest court has been sitting on their matter, and the highest court has said there is a legal dispute, there is a jurisdiction on this thing, and South Africa was right to bring this thing, and Israel has got to answer. In a month, we're waiting to see what is the answer, but when the merits of the genocide case are going to be heard, that is where the popo is going to hit the fan, because Israel now is forced in an international platform to go and explain what does it call the killing of those women, children, the way it has killed them in those numbers, and how that is different from the genocide that we saw in the Holocaust, that we saw in Rwanda, that we saw in Myanmar. So this is a victory for humanity.
That, how much gravitas does the ICJ hold? Because we know that it previously granted an order for Russia to stop its military operation in Ukraine after Ukraine accused President Putin's administration of seeking to justify its destruction by claiming its people were Nazis. I mean, Putin himself ignored that ruling. as we look to see what sort of action will take place, and also considering the tone of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Mpo, you know, Netanyahu reminds me of P.W. Botha. He is in his P.W. Botha moment. If you remember, P.W. Botha never believed that this democracy will be here. He declared state of emergency and after state of emergency. But he could not go to the International Court of Justice and remove a decision that apartheid is a crime against humanity. He could not. And South Africans, white South Africans, when they went all over the world and tried to clean this thing, they could not remove the fact that they are governing this country immorally. And I think the Israelites, the young men and women that are of Jewish origin and they live in Israel, and any Jew in the world, is going to sit with this blood into his character and his image that the country that you call your state is practicing a crime against humanity, which is apartheid, and has been involved in genocidal activities in Gaza. They cannot run away from that. So whether they implement or what, like P.W. Botha, if you remember, P.W. Botha kept on saying, Nelson Mandela must renounce violence. That's what Netanyahu is doing. He's not different like P.W. Botha. But I think in a not very distant future, and I want to put it to the country, is that a new leader is going to emerge out of that cabinet or out of that leadership of Israel, and he's going to come with a similar approach that F.W. de Klerk actually did when he stood up on February the 2nd and said this thing cannot continue the way it is. I think we're expecting out of the leadership of Israel somebody who's going to say, can we resolve this Gaza thing and stop being the skunk of the world? Because South Africa was a skunk of the world for many years, and Israel is now the skunk of the world. They cannot run away from the fact that they've been made the skunk of the world. And who did it? Is the country that has defeated the most sophisticated form of racism, which was state-sponsored, apartheid South Africa.
So we know that South Africa's support for the Palestinian cause has deep roots, but you made mention a short while ago of what the critics have had to say about this case. How much does opportunism and politics, how much of a part does that play in the strategic angle as we try and make sense of this outcome?
I'm not sure I understand you. If you
opportunism and politics have also played a role as South Africa took this matter to the ICJ. What stands out on that front? I mean, what's in it for South Africa, irrespective of the Palestinian cause having such deep roots with the country? What is in it on the political front for South Africa?
Look, on the political front, South Africa has demonstrated again that it is a diplomatic champion. You know, this is what we call the dividend of Oliver Tambo. Remember, South Africa, except for the Greenpeace movement, which was dealing with environmental issues, the anti-apartheid movement in the world was the second largest movement because of the diplomatic prowess of the ANC. You know, if the ANC can have all its problems, load shedding and what, but let me tell you, the ANC at an international level is able to punch above its weight. And this time they've demonstrated again. So that is what is in for South Africa. It has re-established itself as a diplomatic country, as an internationalist country. In the country, yes, there is an opportunism that is emerging, that of course it's an election year. If the ANC is not going to take this victory over apartheid Israel and use it to actually increase its dividends of voter support, because most of its opposition parties, say for MK and the EFF, are seemingly opposed to what the ANC has done in Palestine. So the ANC will take that as an opportunity and convert it. But if they don't, it's their challenge. But this has come as a silver platter for them to, in their manifesto, demonstrate that their international relations policy is based on the defense of the constitutional order of South Africa, which is based on human rights. South Africa is now known in the world that it will stand up against a violation of human rights, even if that means facing international sanctions from a country as strong and as networked in the business community as Israel. But South Africa said, because it is correct to do so, because it is a principle to do so, and because our constitution obliges us and our national interest, which means to protect and promote the constitutional order and our national sovereignty, demands it. Our government did it for our national interest and nothing else.
What about the implications? I mean, as we take a look at the West, the U.S., and also the implication on this ruling on provisional measures and the future of international law and international human rights protection?
International human rights has been restored as a centerpiece of the Israel-Gaza story. They can no longer talk about terrorism. The ANC has brought back the human face, the humans that are dying in Gaza into the center. So stop saying people are terrorists when you are killing them. So the human rights agenda is back into the center. And South Africa has done that very well. And in terms of the West, yes, the implications from the West is that this case, the ultimate outcome of this case might redefine how imperialism has actually disadvantaged the world, because the source of this thing is the birthday present that the Balfour Declaration gave to the Rothschilds of the land in Palestine, and it ended up being this big country. So the basis of how some of the countries are being built is going to be questioned. I wonder, those in the Western Cape that want a cessation of the Western Cape province and create another Gaza or another Israel in Africa, how are they going to justify it? Because the essence of what they are saying is that they don't want to be part of South Africa, which is defending human rights. So a whole thing, a whole architecture of how the world is going to look at colonialism is going to change. And I think the West is worried about that more than any other thing.
I suppose it was also important to distinguish that this matter is twofold. There's the provisional measures, which was that announcement we heard yesterday, and also a case on genocide that will take perhaps several more years to get to the bottom of.
Yes, Mpo. And that is the mistake that we are doing, even many of us as analysts. We don't see these two things as a two-stage process. That Israel is going to have to answer for genocide in its entirety. It's going to happen. The merits of the case are going to be had for a long time. And that judgment, already, if you listen to the judge yesterday when she was reading that, she hinted that there are things that South Africa has argued that are genocidal, and those things the court has found that, yes, they are happening. Even if the court did not pronounce about them, but the court has already indicated that there are genocidal activities that are happening as per the definition of genocide in the statute. So Israel is now locked. Between now and when the court is continuing, Israel has got to produce a leader that is going to stand up and say, not in our name, so that by the time the court ends its hearings and it comes with a decision, Israel has made a political decision about Gaza and the state of Palestine, how it is going to deal it, and there must be a peaceful coexistence. And this two-state solution thing that they tried to bring Bantustans into that part of the world will not work. They must just create one state and adopt a constitution and compete to govern the citizens of that one state and let the Jews live side by side with the Palestinians. What is wrong about that? Because we are institutionalizing racism. So I think we are getting into an interesting change of geopolitics.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion. Public policy analyst Dr. Mathebula helping us make sense of the outcome of that historic judgment by the ICJ. Let's